In today's video, I check out some Southern California flower hotspots. From Carrizo Plain to Antelope Valley Poppy Reserve to Diamond Valley Lake. This is the 2023 California Super Bloom. Hi, my name is Peng. I'm a photographer and I'm a travel addict. After moving back to California 7 years ago, I've been fortunate enough to see two super blooms. Once in 2017 and once in 2019. Both times at the peak of super bloom between the last week of March and the first week of April. I know it's already late April when I publish this video, but stay tuned till the end. And I'll explain why I think you may still have a chance to see this if you act fast. Since we got a record amount of rainfall this year in California, I started wondering if another super bloom is in the books. I happen to have a business trip in Southern California, so between April 8th and April 15th, I drove down there and spent a few extra days to check out some flower hotspots. So come along with me on this trip. Our first stop was Carrizo Plain. We boondocked here at night and woke up to this. So far we still have some lingering morning fog, but I expect this to clear up once the sun comes out. In the meantime, I'm going to air down a little bit. Since the roads here are not terrible and I'll be doing a mix of paved and dirt road, I only air down rear tires to about 50 psi and the fronts down to about 30. I've had people ask me if there are any rules on how much to air down. I think it really depends. I usually go down about 30% from factory recommended pressure, and if the ride is still harsh or if I still need more traction, I can always air down a bit more. I've done 25s in the fronts and 40s in the backs before. Of course, when you start your engine up, you're going to get the low tire pressure warning, but just, ignore it. Ooh, nice. This is starting to feel like Canada, the Canadian tundra. What you'll soon realize is wildflowers are sprinkled all over Carrizo Plain. I've also seen Tule elks here before, but not on this trip. But hey, maybe you'll get lucky. From experience, I know the best concentration of flowers are usually around Soda Lake and the Timber Range. Since the fog started lifting along the Timber Range first, that's where we headed. And we soon found the first patch of wildflowers along Highway 58. Now, I don't know that much about plants. I think these are called California goldfields. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. From here, we turned onto Elkhorn Road. Carrizo Plain is one of my favorite places in California, not just because of flowers. It's actually one of the few places where you can very clearly see the San Andreas Fault in action. And the best place to see this is at the Wallace Creek Geological Site. Here, the fault line cuts through Wallace Creek, and as the tectonic plates shift over time, the original creek is pushed apart, creating this very cool 90-degree bend. And you get to put 1 foot on the North American plate, 1 foot on the Pacific plate. How cool is that? We continued on Elkhorn Road, parallel to the Timber Range. The road becomes rougher, but still manageable in most cars. There are also lots of small side roads to explore, but a lot of them cut through private land and active farms with grazing cows. So make sure you close the gate after you pass through. And please respect the landowners if you see any no trespassing signs. We decided to follow one of the side roads up to the ridge to get a little up close and personal with the flowers. The road sure was fun when you're driving it in a van, and the Mercedes Sprinter handled the terrain with ease. I've driven the same road in my old Subarus a few times, so I have something to compare to, and I have to say, driving the van was actually easier with less drama. I think a lot of it is because the van has more ground clearance. Still, if you pick the right line, I think you can make it up this road even in a crossover like a Honda CR-V or a Toyota RAV4. Speaking of side-by-side comparison, I did notice that there appears to be a lot less flower than the last time I was here. On the left is this trip, and on the right is 2019. I'll let you be the judge. But I do have my theories on why, and I'll share later. At the top, we took a break, enjoyed some delicious lunch and some delicious view, then continued exploring without a map. We're not sure where the road was taking us, but hey, isn't that part of the fun of exploring? And this exploring paid off, as we found plenty of places covered in flowers. These giant flower carpets are breathtaking to look at while standing back, but they're just as amazing up close in finer details, so don't forget to get out of your vehicle once in a while. There were still so many roads to explore, but we had to stop at some point, and this seemed like a good spot. Down there, you can see the oil fields. Button Willow, I actually don't know what it's called, but it's near Button Willow, the oil fields. And then there's Central Valley, and on the other side, on a clear day, you should be able to see Sierra Nevada, the snow-capped mountains, but today is too cloudy. The road keeps going, but I think we're going to turn around because we want to go down to the Soda Lake down below to see some more flowers. We retraced back to our lunch spot and got a pleasant surprise.
We ran into a van up top. We thought it was a stealth. It's not, but then we looked down. Voila!
It's always cool to meet another storyteller in their natural habitat. No, I don't mean campgrounds or highways. I meant on the trail. I don't think anyone's home, but... oh, twins! And whoever you are, your camp neighbors were just as amused as we were. Down from the ridge, back on Elkhorn Road, we came to a junction with another road that seems to aim for the valley, so we took it, which eventually led us back to the main Soda Lake Road, but not before we drove on the only stretch of road that required higher ground clearance that day. These deep tire grooves are why you don't want to drive these side roads when they're wet. I've made a mistake one time driving in Carrizo Plain right after the rain, not even on these small side roads. It was on the well-maintained main Soda Lake Road, which is a wide and flat dirt road. It was slick as ice and I was sliding all over the place. There's something about the clay here that makes them super slick. That's why there are signs posted at these trailheads saying roads impassable when wet. You can probably make it if you have mud terrain tires, but then you'd be leaving these deep grooves and destroy the road for others. So just wait until the road is dry to drive it. See how rough this road is? We can barely feel it driving this because we air it down. That's why you air it down. Once near the Soda Lake, the flowers were plentiful, but once again not as thick or tall as 2017 or 2019. It's still a spectacular sight to behold though, and it makes for some great photos. So definitely make a stop here. Just be mentally prepared for the crowds. Our next stop is the Antelope Valley California Puppy Reserve. And as the name suggests, the specialty here is California puppies. We got here at 7:30 a.m. on a weekend, just after the gate opening, and the main parking lot was already almost full. So if you don't want to wait in long line or wait for parking, you should come early. This is what the entrance looked like when we were leaving at 10 a.m. The problem is, poppies close up at night, and they don't start to open up until it warms up. In our case, around 9 a.m. So that's where the van comes in handy. We just got in early, took our time, ate breakfast, hung out in the van, and then headed out for the hike once it warmed up. And yes, the line is still going.
Oh, a fender bender.
Oh.
Jesus.
Keep in mind, this is not even close to the busiest I've seen this place, because frankly, the puppy was a little disappointing this year inside the reserve. As you can see in my time lapse from 2017, these hills were covered in poppies, but not so this year. Don't get me wrong, the hills are still covered in flowers, mostly dominated by fiddlenecks, and the view was sublime. And of course, there are still large patches of poppies. I definitely think it's still worth the price of admission for a visit. I just think that maybe I was spoiled by the surreal amount of puppies I saw in 2017 and was expecting too much. But wait, there's more. After leaving the reserve, we started heading towards Lancaster, and guess what we saw on the side of the road? Loads and loads of puppies mixed in with other wildflowers. So we just spontaneously turned onto the first road we saw, inadvertently hitting a small bump in the road. And found ourselves driving here. More flowers, less people, great photos. I can't complain. And that's what we did for the rest of the day. Exploring the dirt roads, wandering around the area.
Record, tilt the camera. That's how much. Tilt the camera. See how much I told you. Ready?
We were so happy it didn't even bother us as the wind picked up later in the day. And clearly, it didn't bother him.
He's having fun.
Our final stop is Diamond Valley Lake, which is actually the largest reservoir in Southern California. This is a great place to go if you live in LA and don't want to make a long drive, but expect LA crowds on weekends and LA prices, as they not only charge for vehicle parking, they also charge $4 per person for a hiking ticket. And keep your tickets with you because someone really does stand guard at the trailhead to check. When we were here, flowers are already slightly past prime, but it's still the best place to bring the entire family. Most of the trails are wide and easy, hikeable in street shoes, and even if you don't want to climb the steeper trails, you can still find plenty of flowers right next to the road. But if you do decide to climb one of the hills, you'll be rewarded with something quite unique this year. Snow-capped mountains in the background. So much snow fell in the mountains around LA this year, they're still snow-covered even in mid-April. I am sure glad I got to see it because who knows when this will happen again. And of course, you are also rewarded with an elevated view. Just keep an eye on time because the park closes at 6 p.m. and by 5:30 the puppies are already starting to close up. So if you want to photograph puppy flower, keep that in mind. So that was it. Those were the 3 flower hotspots I checked out throughout the week. And after this trip, I'm a little confused. I thought the amount of rain we got would surely bring in a super bloom like no other. And so far, we certainly got a super bloom, but it isn't anywhere close to matching what I saw in 2017 or 2019. Super bloom needs more than just rain. These annual wildflowers won't germinate in dry years, so the seed will remain dormant and get stored up over several years until conditions are right. So it's possible we just don't have enough seeds stored up yet. But here's my theory. Maybe the bloom just haven't peaked yet in the north. This has been a weird year in terms of weather in California. The temperature was still in the 40s at night when I stayed in Carrizo Plain, when it normally would be much warmer. In the south, like Anza Borrego and Diamond Valley Lake, flower is already past peak, but they also peaked later than normal. Carrizo Plain and Antelope Valley actually sit at a pretty high elevation and is only starting to warm up now. I do want to remind you, I am not a scientist. I'm just going with my gut feeling, and I do have a pretty big gut. But my gut feeling is that the peak bloom in Carrizo Plain and Antelope Valley is still happening, is just delayed by a month. Well, at least that's what I'm telling myself. And that's why I'll be back at Carrizo Plain to check it out this weekend. We'll see if my theory pans out. And hey, if you're there, maybe I'll see you on the trail. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please leave a like. If you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.